Tonight's workshop is about creating a jellyfish painting. Let me show you. So this is a jellyfish painting. The background is watercolor. And then I preserved the white space on this using a masking fluid. So we're going to use some masking fluid tonight to mask off. So in other words, underneath the jellyfish here, it was white. And that's because I masked off all the parts that I wanted to remain white and then laid in the ocean and then came back and put the in the white space, I put the jellyfish. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. In addition to doing this, we have to wait. First, we put down our masking fluid. We have to wait for it to dry. Then we put in the background. We have to wait for that to dry. So while those two steps are happening and they are waiting to dry, I am going to do a painting on this paper. So this is called an ugly pad, but it made in America. That's what I like about it. It's made in America. It's an American company. This pad has 5 assorted colors. They have many different colors of pads. Some of them are, the theme is more organic and some of them are pastels, but this is their bright colors and I liked it. So what we're gonna do inside here are a whole bunch of various colors of those colors of paper. So I'm going to take one of the turquoise colored ones, and that way we won't have to paint the background, but I will have the ability to, while those other steps are drying on the other one, we'll be able to play with this one and we'll see what we get, right? So this is a 9x12 pad from the Ugly Book Company. I'll show you their logo here. Right there. Oops. Ugly Books. Because they actually make little sketchbooks using these colorful papers, and then they also sell these pads. So I like the larger format, and we're going to use one of these while we're waiting for things to dry to make another painting. Now, the kind of paint we're going to use tonight, we're going to use some watercolor. So this happens to be in Danthrine Blue from Daniel Smith, but any like oceany blue watercolor will work. And then tonight I'm choosing to use a regular gouache. That means it is re-wettable with water. Last week I used an acrylic gouache, which is not re-wettable with water. And so this brand that I have is called M Graham. And I have a little basic set. So it comes in a basic set of 5. These are the colors in the set of 5. And then I was at a big art show and I bought other colors that I like to use. So I have a baggie here with a whole bunch of other colors. Let me kind of show you what's in the basic color set. So in the basic color set, you're going to get your basic mixing colors. So it's an azo yellow, a naphthol red, and a cobalt blue. And then you're going to get titanium white, which is a permanent white. Come on, get out of there. Let's get the black out first. Maybe it'll be easier for me then. Oops, something glued together there. So we've got the black. Okay. The black for some reason glued to the package, but there's a black and then your titanium white. Oops, which is where? Here. So titanium white. Most of the time I use titanium white because I want the brightness and I also want the mixability of a very opaque white. But a lot of people who do gouache like to use something called a zinc white. Do you see that? Z-I-N-C. So titanium white is much more opaque, but sometimes you just want to tint your color a little bit and your titanium white can be a little overpowering. So that's when artists use zinc white. So that's why I have both, right? You'd be like, why the heck do you have 2 whites? Well, they do 2 different things. That's why. Then I bought for myself So when you're creating a palette, and that's what I'm mentioning right now. When you create a palette, you want to have a range or a variety of colors. And there are certain colors that I like to have in my palette, no matter what brand or range of paints I'm buying. So besides the cobalt blue here, which is absolutely beautiful, I also want an ultramarine blue, which is a little bit darker. Okay, so cobalt blue is more of your lighter, mid to light range blues, and then ultramarine blue is a darker blue. And now what comes in the set is a naphthol red. That set of 5 here is a naphthol red. Well, naphthol red is a warm red, and it doesn't always mix well with your other colors. So I got myself a quinacridone rose. So that is a violet, kind of a pinky, like you would do, like my shirt, like you would do roses or something with that quinacridone rose. And that's an excellent mixing color. So, and then I always have to have a yellow ochre, and who is that? Hillary Feldman said hi over on YouTube. Hello, hello, hello. So there is a yellow ochre. I always have to have a yellow ochre for that neutral, natural. Gamboge. So the one that came in the color mixing set here is a bright azo yellow. See how it's almost a lemon yellow. So besides that yellow, I like to have the yellow ochre, which is very earthy, but then I also like to have a gamboge. So a gamboge it has a little more red in it. So it tends more toward the orangey red. It's earthy, but it's not as earthy as your yellow ochre. Excellent yellows. So if you have this combination of these 3, that's like a lemony yellow, a gamboge, which is a little bit more of an orangey yellow, and then yellow ochre, you are set. I'm sure there are other yellows out there, but that is a good combination of yellows. So the azo yellow came in the set of 5, and then I bought the other 2 separately. And then either a burnt sienna or a burnt umber. A burnt sienna is more red, and a burnt umber is a little bit darker in tone. So I bought the darker burnt umber for this set. And that's because um, the red that we have here, the naphthol red, together with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue, just touches of those, will give me what I want. They'll actually create a burnt sienna for me. So I have the components that I can use to already create a burnt sienna. So that's why I chose a burnt umber, because it's not always easy to get super dark colors, no matter whether you're talking about watercolor or gouache. It's not always easy to get those to mix really nice dark colors. So having either burnt umber or burnt umber and burnt sienna will help you with that. And then the last one, because I always have to have this, it's just you can mix purples, okay? But it's always, hey there, Jeff. Thank you so much for sharing over on Whatnot. Um, Even though you can mix purples, and I already know that the quinacridone rose and either the cobalt blue or the ultramarine blue in here will mix beautiful purples. Again, they don't get as dark as the dioxazine purple. So quite often when I'm buying in within a range, I get the dioxazine purple because it's a super deep purple. Again, it's hard to mix the deep colors, right? And so dioxazine purple is like, I always have to have that. So that's kind of a tour around the colors of the gouache that I have. And the brand is M Graham. It looks like this. I think it's Graham, M Graham Company. Now, the interesting thing is these are made with Northwest natural honey that's in the United States. And so honey is what do they call it? Humectant. It's what keeps this moist. Isn't that interesting? So So cool. And it is rewettable. We'll see that as we're working with it. Yay. I'm so excited. Now, the other kind of paper that we're going to be using with that is a watercolor paper. So this jellyfish artwork is done on what's called cold press watercolor paper. That's why the background here, which I used watercolor on, actually, and has all this streakiness to it. You get more texture to your background if you work on a textured paper. So watercolor paper is textured. Now, quite often when I work with gouache, which is an opaque, thick watercolor, I usually use hot press paper. Hot press paper is smooth, but because I'm actually creating, I wanted to create this interesting background for the jellyfish. I was like, you know what? I need the texture of the cold press paper. So what we're using tonight is, this is a watercolor block. What does that say? Something cold pressed watercolor block. All right. The reason that I want to use a block, and I'll explain what a block is in a second, is because you see all the water, it had to be really wishy-washy all around the outside here, lots of water. And so if you use a regular a watercolor pad with loose sheets, the sheets are going to do this, right? They're going to curl when you get them super wet. But if you use a block, the block is glued on. Oh, good. Thank you, Jeff said. I'm really loving this explanation. Thanks for explaining it. My pleasure. That's why I'm here. So, a watercolor block. This is the cold press paper. It has a little bit of texture to it. If you notice, there's glue all around here. There's a little opening right here. And then there's glue here. There's glue here. There's glue down here and glue over here. So, what that does, that's why they call it a block. And if you look here, it tells you this is where you open the block, meaning this is where you remove the sheets. This was on the block earlier today, and then I removed it using this little slot right here. I just slip a palette knife, or I have this really cool thing called a block leaf, like that, and it goes right in there. And then because the edges are a little bit blunt, it helps to cut the paper off without ripping the paper. So I can do it with a palette knife, but I prefer the block leaf because of the edge shape, and that way it's less likely to rip the paper when I take it off. Okay, because Lordy knows I've ripped lots of paper when I've taken off my artworks from a block. So I have learned, and I'll have links to these items in the description of the video on YouTube later tonight here, because you let your artwork completely dry so that it dries flat, right? Because the block holds it flat because it's got glue on all the sides. And then you just put the block leaf in there, and when you're using your block leaf or a palette knife or anything that you're going to slide in there in order to take the paper off, what I do is I always angle the leaf in the down. So I angle it down in the direction that I'm going around. That way I'm less likely, if it's even or if it's slightly for some reason up, it will literally cut the edge of your paper into odd ragged edges, and you don't want that. So yeah, let's see. This one is by Turner Block Leaf, it says on it. And I just keep it here at my desk. But I'll have a link to it in the description of the video on YouTube later, after the show. Okay. So we are going, another thing we're going to use is this drawing gum. It's a masking fluid. I've worked with Pebeo, so you see the Pebeo name right here. They gave me a bunch of aprons. Thank you, Pebeo. And so I got this from them to use on watercolor. And I was speaking with Tom Lynch, who's a very famous watercolorist, at a show some years back. Actually, I think it's the same show where I bought these. And he said he loves using the Pebeo drawing gum, and that you can actually put water in with it, put it in a spray bottle, and then he uses that to spray and get his fog or the spray at the edge of a wave, that kind of thing. So I thought that was really cool. He uses spray bottles for a lot of things. I'm thinking one of my upcoming classes, I'm going to show you his spray bottle technique for. It's very cool. But he puts this with a little extra water. This is actually liquid latex, and it's used as a mask. So you put it on the watercolor paper and then you paint over top of it and then you remove it. Well, the interesting thing is that Tom Lynch specifically, I have several of his books, and he specifically talks about a kind of bottle that doesn't give you a mist, it gives you more of a spatter. And that's what he uses to create atmosphere. And so he specifically says in his book that a misting bottle is a little too fine a mist. You want something that spatters a little bit more. Um, yeah. And so I have bought myself. I did buy some misters, but I have to work on my technique for getting it to spatter. And so this is an example of some where I've been playing with it, but I'm not ready to teach it yet. But this is his formula. You take your watercolor paint with water, and you put it in a mister or a spray bottle, and then you hold it a certain way and you get this really cool spatter. So you can see I'm working on it, right? I'm working on it so I can bring the technique to y'all on a Sunday. But we're going to be using the drawing gum. To Florida Glass Girl said, can't wait for that class. Yeah, it's. I don't think I'll be using Tom Lynch's name in the article, although on my website I will say that it's a technique from Tom Lynch in the description. But it'll be like spatter paint. You'll recognize it from the picture that goes with it. Now with drawing gum, which is a masking fluid, it doesn't matter whether it's Pebio's or anyone else's. You want to gently mix it. Okay. You don't want to shake it and agitate it because Lordy knows latex gets tons of bubbles in it. And it's really annoying. The other thing you can do is take a brush. Let me get a different handle because that handle, the wood is coming off. Oh, this hand. Goodness gracious, I have lots of brushes where the wood is coming off the handle. The other thing you can do is just take the back end of a brush and gently. You need new brushes too. What it is I have tons and tons. You know, you have your tried and trues, your favorites, and so I can't give them up, even if the wood starts coming off, right? So this is also a Pebeo brush. These are great because it's more of a plastic handle, and so it doesn't split, where this one, you can see it's an oldie goldie and all of the lacquer splitting off of it. But when we get over the table, I'll show you that there's not a buildup of bubbles in here, which if I shook it, there'd be a buildup of bubbles in it, and we don't want that. Um, yes, exactly. That was a well-loved brush. I have lots of well-loved brushes, but we're going to be removing the drawing gum or masking fluid with a rubber cement eraser. So this is called a rubber cement eraser. And you can also use your fingers to roll it off. But when you do it a lot and you have a lot to take off, you end up losing your your fingerprint if you do it too much. So anyway, I've got my rubber cement thing here. Oh, this is a large size of the drawing gum. And you see how my sister-in-law came up with this idea. She put a rubber band on here, and then I store it. Let me do this so I can give you the full effect. You store it like that. So you have your rubber cement eraser with it. And this is one of my two brushes that I reserve for doing with using with the masking fluid, right? Yeah, maybe you need the, well, you'll see when we get to that part. Okay. But Isn't that cool? She came up with that idea. Just put a rubber band on it and it'll hold them on there. I'm like, that way they don't get lost. They don't get separated, right? Love that. Now for a palette tonight, I'm just going to be using a plastic plate. You want something that is not porous, right? Because we're going to be mixing paint with a bunch of water on here. So I just use a simple China plate when I'm doing gouache. I tend to, this kind of gouache is re-wettable with water, but I prefer to use gouache when it is when it's fresh out of the tube. You can put it into a pan, but it just doesn't have. Hey, critter chops, welcome in over on Whatnot. Hello, hello. It To me, when you try to re-wet it from the dry state, it's just not nearly as creamy unless it's manufactured and you receive it in a dry plate. Then they've worked with the formula, or a dry pan. They've worked with the formula so that it's easy to release. So Karen Dosh has a gouache palette that's in a dry pan state. And those are designed to become very creamy very fast just by spraying on a little bit of water. Also, a company out of Canada called Stone Ground Paint Company, and I'll be bringing you their gouache palette soon too. I have my kids gave me some money at one point and said, "Buy what you want, Mom." And well, I bought a big palette of the stone ground paint gouache. So it's already in little pans, and the formula is made so that it will release that paint and still give you a nice thick paint very easily, which is great. I'm going to go up over top of the table and we're going to get started with painting our jellyfish. So we're going to start by putting, where's my picture? I had my picture here a second ago of jellyfish. It's probably just underneath something that I was I mean, I can do it from memory, but I wanted to put the picture here so that y'all can see. If you've been with me before, you know I'm famous for losing things. Right here, it's like, wait a minute, I had it 1 second ago. Did it drop? Yep, it dropped. There we go. That's what we're working with. And let me just set that aside. So if you weren't here earlier, this is the painting that I made as a preview for the class. And it is jellyfish in the ocean. Um, all right, so this was the picture I was working from. I have no idea where this picture came from. I think this is actually a vintage picture that came in a lot of things that I bought on Whatnot. And so it might have come with a lot of postcards because it looks kind of like a postcard size, but it just says Kodak on the back. It's an old one, an older picture. And I'm like, ooh, I like those. Okay, so we are going to work with that concept. Now, I did this one earlier, so I'm going to do this one now, but I'm not going to use exactly those colors. We're going to have some more fun with the colors, but the technique is going to be the same. So what I'm going to start with is I have to lay out here on my watercolor paper. Again, this is cold press watercolor block. Okay, because we're going to be putting a bunch of water and ocean colored paint on there. And so we're just going to do this gently, right? We want to gently do that. Now I could take time and do a pencil sketch, but I already did this one. So I'm already warmed up. I got up early this morning and finished that one. So here we go with the drawing gum, which is a masking fluid. Now, when I'm using my large one, this large size one right here, same thing. You just gently do this. You have to mix some of the latex. Well, what you're mixing is the color because they add color to the latex. Otherwise, when it dries, it would be clear and then it'd be hard to see where it was. So they add a blue color to it. Some companies add pink or peach. And then, so if I'm using the large container, I pour it from the large container into a little cup so I don't have to leave the top open for a long time. But right now, I can just use it right from here. You know what? I'm going to use a new brush because I need one that has a little more width to it. The ones I usually use for details are these. These are just old brushes. You can see this is a little round brush from the same series of Pebeo brushes here, right? But I want something a little bit wider. I'm going to keep these other ones with the skinnier tips handy. Ooh, another thing that a lot of people like to use to apply this kind of thing with is a silicone tip tool, because masking fluid, when it's dry, it'll roll right off. So you can also use a silicone tip tool to apply it. I have lots of silicone tip tools of different sizes. These are, you'll find them usually for nail art, okay, little silicone tip tools, but they can work for applying the, your brushes get stiff. Yes, the brushes get stiff. These are super stiff. And I just keep them. So you want to use a brush that's like not a throwaway brush, but a brush that you don't mind being a brush that you use just for your masking fluid. Okay. Like this one's going to get stiff, but I'll just use it for masking fluid. You can rinse these off afterwards when you're done to kind of bring them, but you know, they're never the same. Can you wash them with shampoo and conditioner? No. Moody Virgo arts, because what happens is the latex gets in between the little fibers of the hair and it's almost impossible to get it out. So I just, I use cheapo brushes. You can actually buy specific masking fluid brushes. My favorite ones are the Creative Mark from Jerry's Artarama. The company name is Creative Mark. All right. This has glitter in it. Imagine that. More glitter. Oh, well, I must have been using these around a lot of glitter. So normally if I'm going to be, oh, for the watercolor, Virgo, Moody Virgo Arts, when, so when I'm using watercolor brushes, like for instance, these that we're going to use tonight, the silver black velvet. Oh my gosh, I got a great deal on these, y'all. So, we're going to use them, but they are super high end and very expensive. But I didn't pay retail price for them. I got them at a sale at Jerry's Artarama when one of their stores were going out of business. So I paid a fraction of what they normally cost. But yeah, I would never use a good watercolor brush like this in masking fluid ever. But if I want to clean these, I use the General's soap, brush soap. Okay. It's the General's and it's in a tub. And then you swirl around and then I do this. So not shampoo, not not any sort of conditioner. Well, it is a brush conditioner, the General soap in the big round. I buy the big tub because I brush, I'm painting almost every day. Ah, I see. Oh, okay. Okay. I see. You thought it was paint. No, this is masking fluid. So, especially if I'm using the big one like this, then I always pour a little bit of it off into a cup, because the longer you leave this open, the more likely you're going to get a film over the top of it. And that film is going to be a rubbery, maybe I can show you. There are little bits of rubber coming off of there now, latex. And so I try to keep it closed and dry. Now, if this begins to get thick, you can add some water to it and then like rehydrate it, right, with a little bit of water. So that's what I do to keep it going. Like this big one right here, I'll just periodically add some water to it to keep it going. Okay, I'm going to use this new one because I like the shape of this brush being a flat top, and it'll cover the distance that I want a little bit better. So I have to decide, what direction do I want this to go in? I think I want this one to be heading that way, where the other one I did was heading that way. So I'm just gonna, yes, normally I would use a pencil and kind of draw it out, but right now I'm just gonna go for it. And the reason I'm just gonna go for it without doing a pencil drawing is because if you make a mistake with your masking fluid, once your masking fluid is dry, you can just roll it off and do it again. So do not worry. No worries there. Let's see. What I'm doing is I'm looking at this jellyfish, and I'm everywhere that's not the jellyfish, I'm putting an ocean color in. So I want the whole jellyfish area to be covered with masking fluid. Okay, let's see what sort of size we've got here. And then that's kind of the top of it. And then there's a little ledge below the top of it here, right? Like this little ledge area. And you don't have to put it on too thick. The thicker you put it on, the longer you have to wait for it to dry. And it dries pretty quickly in a thin layer and gives you good protection. Okay, so let's just do that. And then, let's see, need it to be slightly wider, don't I? If I'm kind of following along with the imagery there. Okay, good. So that's the top. Ooh, maybe I want it to be a little broader at the top here. Once it is dry, if you try to put more on top of it, it will lift the part that's underneath it. So then you just have to be patient and wait and then lift up what's underneath it and then do it again. It happens. Okay, that's better. So we're doing the dome of the jellyfish, right? And then below the jellyfish, patience, what is that? I got you, Jeff. Um, Down here, if you look at this one, you've got these tendrils and you have these swirls coming down from the, did I keep that in frame? There you go. Yes. So now we're going to make those white. Okay. So we've got this area right here that's going to come down. Now, right now I'm using the flat brush, but if I want to use a, I'll be doing the tendrils a little bit thinner, and then I'll need my other brush. So I'm going to be doing some, moving it to like sort of make some ribbons coming down here, right? And then some more sort of ribbony things coming off of here. Okay, cool. A little bit more in terms of ribbons coming off of here. I'm pressing. A little bit more over here. It looks like there's sort of a ribbon that comes off of here. Okay, cool. So we've got some in the center. Ooh, now I'm going to switch to the small brushes. Now, yes, masking fluid, exactly. So I'm wiping this off. And a word of caution. You don't want this stuff going down your pipes. You don't want the liquid latex going down your pipes, okay? So a lot of people will just take their brush and they'll rinse it in the rinse water. Don't do that, because otherwise you're going to get small layers of masking fluid, latex that's going to build up in your watercolor brushes. So you never want to do that. What you do is you take a separate cup like this, and then if you want to rinse it out, you rinse it out in the separate cup. Like the water's getting all cloudy right now, and that glitter's coming up, which is pretty funny to me, but okay. So you can rinse it out right away. But I'm going to tell you from a practical standpoint, it doesn't get it completely out of all of the hairs. Now, I've been told by somebody that if you use alcohol at this stage, you can get it off. So let's see, because I have some alcohol right here. This is just rubbing alcohol, right? Like you would get at the drugstore. More glitter in there. Oh my goodness gracious. So I'm just using a little bit of alcohol here and seeing if it'll take it out. I don't know if it will or not, but anyway, there we go. Alcohol. Now I have glitter in it. Okay. So we'll see when that dries, but since I did just use it for masking fluid, I'm probably just going to keep it with my masking fluid like that. and just continuously use it for masking fluid. Okay, so now I want to mask off some more little tendrils here. So now I'm going to move to my smaller brushes that I keep just for, and this sucker is, I might as well be using the silicone because all the hairs are stuck together and I keep taking off more and more latex here. So once that they're covered in latex, it's not going to come off. But I can still use it here with my masking fluid and make the small tendrils that come down. Let's go do it a little bit further down. There we go, like that. Okay. Now, if I get too much on there, like, let me bring it up so you can see what I'm talking about. You see you see how thick it is? I don't know if you can right there, but what I do is if I get it too thick and I'm like, oh, that's going to take forever to dry, I just take the very edge of like a corner of my paper towel, and I go in just with the corner and I touch it. And what that'll do is that'll pick up that excess as long as it's fresh. If it started to dry, it won't. But if it's fresh, I can suck up some of that excess. All right. So let's do some more of this. So that was coming from right there. And then let's do another one back down in here. Let's say it's coming from there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm preserving the white so that later I'll be able to put my color in there, and it won't compete with the blue because, right, I'm going to be putting blue in the background for the ocean. Okay, let's see. I need a little bit more of that. Let me imagine that there's one right here also coming from back behind there. On these are interesting jellyfish because off of the rim right here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there are these little tendrils that come off the rim, and I love that about these. So that's what I'm doing right now, is creating some of those tendrils. And the tendrils are much darker than the rest of it. So that's what I'm doing right now, bringing the tendrils off, and they sort of, they undulate in the water. I'm watching where my other wetness is so I don't stick my wrist in it. That is so cool. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you over on Whatnot. Yes, so yeah, I like these in particular because of that. And then there's going to be another one back behind here, like a little bit shorter as a possibility. So yes, I am drawing at this point, but I'm just drawing with masking fluid. And like I said, if I made a mistake, if I went, uh-oh, I didn't want it there. Let's say I dropped my brush and I got let's do it. I dropped my brush and I got a bunch of it right there. I'm like, uh-oh, that's okay. I just let it dry and then I roll it off before I start painting, y'all. So it's very forgiving. Get your brushes out and follow along, right? The Heart of Glass says. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to put another tendril over here coming off of this edge. And so I keep having to dip back in because it runs out pretty quickly. Let's do this. Cool. I need it to be slightly longer. There we go. Awesome. It's looking good already. Love that. Okay. Just looking to, I'm planning ahead and trying to see, okay, where else might I want to put one of these tendrils coming out? Like I have one coming out over here. So that's a total of 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have to have odd numbers. So I'm going to figure out how to get another one in there. I guess I will come back behind here and create another one. There we go. Maybe it comes this way. out from behind this one and then down, and then has its own like trajectory, right? Okay. All right. So I have a little bit of crossing over. I'm going to bring it up closer so you can see from a design perspective. Okay. So I've got these two crossing over right here. And then over here, these two don't cross over themselves, but this one crosses underneath this big one. And then I have two more over here that are crossing behind the middle. Okay. Let's see. Oh, you don't have any brushes to get started with, Jeff? Meh. Well, watch on Whatnot. Actually, check in with Critter Chops because Critter Chops has lots of art supplies, and I've bought a bunch of incredibly cool stuff from him. So there may be the possibility that he has some decent brushes for you. Okay, so this top part is already dry. And you know what? I'm looking here at the bigger tendrils and everything is sort of ending right here. So I need to get back to the big ones again and bring them down. If you made the jellyfish dark, could you do it without the masking fluid? Yes. Jeff said, if I wanted the jellyfish to be darker than the background, or let's say I wasn't going to put any background in, you can also do that because you can make your jellyfish and then you can scan it into your computer. I know I'm getting technical on you here, but you could scan it into your computer and then you could click the background and say, I want that to be this color, that color, that color, right? And then you could pop a color into the background. So yes, theoretically that is correct. Okay, let's so what I'm going to do here is I'm from a design perspective, I'm looking and I'm like, ooh, everything kind of ends right here. So I need to bring these ribbons down just a little bit further. So I am going to go back to the other one. I'm going to take this one that I was using and I'm just going to wipe it off. So that's usually what I do. I just wipe it off like this. Okay. And I wonder if I put it in the alcohol like that other person had suggested, if that will help break it up or not. I don't know. Once it's dry, it may not affect it at all. Just like I can put a silicone tool in here, right? And it's not, the alcohol's not going to affect it at all. Yeah, doesn't really do much after the fact. It might do something while it's still wet. Yeah, it's still, I just shape it, see, into like the sort of point, and then it's still all full of latex. I even have another little one, see, for even more detail if I want to put like dots or something like that in there. Okay, so I'm just going to bring these, let me bring this up this way just a little bit more. I'm going to bring these down just a little bit more so everything doesn't sort of end right at that level. So you can come back here and just add some more. There we go. I'll just put this right over top of what's there gingerly because I don't want what's underneath there to come up. Like I said, if you try to put wet on top of dry, oftentimes the wet will start pulling the dry off. And it's like, no, I don't want it to do that. Yikes. Okay. There we go. A little bit longer. And then what do I want to do over here? So this one I'll just pick up right here. That's good. And then I have one more here that I want to make a little bit longer right here. Make it a little bit more ribbon-like. Okay, there we go. Why don't I do that with this one too? I have one of these branching off, so I think I'm going to take this one and branch it off just a little bit like this. There we go. Interesting. Interesting. All right, then we're going to set this aside to dry, right? Because that sucker has to fully dry before we come back in here and start painting over top of it. Yes, I will peel it later. Exactly. So I'm going to do this with my brush again, and I'm going to use that water that's only for masking fluid, not for your brushes, right? Because if you could see it, I don't think you can see it because it's in a white cup, but it's very cloudy. That's from the latex. coming out of the brush. So there we go, like that. And then I'm gonna dry it a little bit, put it in the alcohol. You love the peeling part? Yes. The peeling part is very satisfying. We'll get to that pretty quickly because once this is dry, we'll put the background in, let that dry for a few minutes, and then we'll peel. Okay, so here I'm using the alcohol. Remember the latex had not dried on the brush yet. Okay, when you have a moment, take a look in the shop. If you're on Whatnot, I have, you can put in art supplies. I have a few art supplies like watercolor palettes that I can custom make. But for the most part, I have lots and lots of art, and I have art prints as well. The question from Moody Virgo Arts is, when I peel it, will it leave the white area? Yes, right now I'm masking off the white area so that it will preserve the white for when I remove the masking fluid. Now, if you have leftover masking fluid, you can take it like this and pour it back in. So whenever I have a little bit left over, I do that. And then I just let that dry and it goes in the garbage, not down the sink. You don't need to rinse it. Okay. You just put it in the garbage. And then, oh, you're back. What is that? Elijah over on YouTube. Welcome in. Oh, you have one of my ACEO cards. Yay. That's awesome. Yep, I do love painting in all sizes. I have in storage right now, my biggest painting is 8 feet by 5 feet. It's 5 feet wide by 8 feet tall. And a few others that are 5 feet as well across. No, they're 4 feet across, 5 feet down. Let's see. Okay, so drawing go. Those are the biggest ones I have right now in storage. No, they're not the biggest ones. The biggest one I have in storage is 7 feet long by, I think, 4.5 feet deep. So, yeah. So I go from little ones like this. So these are the artist trade cards, ACEOs, up to big, 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 like, big wall type arts as well. Okay. But of course, when I'm teaching on Sunday nights, I only have this much area to work in, right? Right here, what we're doing right now. So I'm working smaller. Okay, well, that brush seems to have cleaned with the combination of water and then alcohol. So that's good to know, right? And there they are. They are rubber banded to my masking fluid now. And that will set aside. So we're going to set this aside for a moment. A lot of times people will say, can't you use a heat gun to dry this? Okay, a word of caution with that. If you use a heat gun to dry this, oftentimes what can happen is, especially if you've added any water to it, it can soak into the fibers of the paper and make it impossible to remove. So don't do it. And you know how I figured that out? I left one of these in my car one time here in Florida and it got hot and I was never able to remove it. And it was terrible. Okay, so right now, that little bit where I said, oops, I got some right on here, that's already dry. So that was the mistake part, right? Okay, here's the alcohol, here's the water. With the water, I always just put a paper towel in there to soak up the water that has that little bit of latex in it, and then I throw it in the garbage, okay? Do not put it down your sink. Do not put the water from the drawing gum or the masking fluid down your sink, okay? You don't want that. Okay, so what I'm going to use right now is I'm going to either take my finger, like I could use my finger and roll this right off, the little bit that I said, oopsies, or you can use the edge of your, what is this, rubber cement eraser, and you just do this, and that saves your fingerprint when you have lots of it. Okay, there we go. So now it balls up on the edge of your eraser, and you just have to take it off. There we go. Now I am going to use my finger just to be sure everything is off of there. Yes. Cool. All right. So we'll set that aside to dry. And then we're going to play with this. So this, if you weren't here earlier, it's paper from Ugly Pads. It's actually from a company called Ugly Books. I'll have a link to Ugly Books in the description of the video. And notice in big bold letters, made in the USA. So isn't that awesome? It's a US company, and I have a link to their website. So I'll put that in the description of the video. But they make notepads. That's why they call them ugly books, out of these like fabulous brightly colored papers. So you can custom order notepads with whatever their colors papers are. And the papers are 175 GSM. So 300 GSM is your typical 140-pound watercolor paper, like what we're working on for the white one. But it's a pretty good size. And last week when I was doing acrylic gouache, this is the piece that I did on a pink one. So it was the pink, and you can see the paper's a little bit warped from using gouache on it, but not too bad. Gouache is a drier medium than regular watercolor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with this blue being my background, and then I'm going to paint with gouache on top of it, just like I did here to create this beta fish last week. So if you missed this workshop and you want to see how to paint this one, I did these two last week. This one and this one. If you only wanted to do this one or this one, in the YouTube video, under the live tab on my account, there is there in the description, it has where you can click and go to that part where I did the different fish. Thank you very much. Jeff says, love the fish. Yeah, me too. I have more pictures of fish, so I'm like, oh yeah, I have to paint more of those. I'm gonna do more on this the ugly paper because I just love the effect of gouache on the ugly paper. So we're going to experiment while we're waiting for the other thing to dry, and later when we lay in the background. So I am gonna set my picture kind of in front of me here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. Are you going to be able to see it? No, not really. Okay, maybe I'll just bring it down a little bit. Yes, now you can see it. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to play around while we're waiting for that to dry. Yeah, thank you. The Heart of Glass says, yeah, the beta fish is cool. Yeah, I'm going to do more of those for sure because I really like that. The other thing I like to paint is the shells from real, like a still life. So I have a bunch of beautiful shells here at my house, and I like to set them on the table like that and then either draw them or paint them. As you can tell, there's paint on this one because paint goes flying in my studio all the time. Okay, so we are going to use the paper as the background in this case. This is a good one to get warmed up with. Now, because we're on a colored paper, I'm actually going to use the titanium white instead of the zinc white because the titanium white is more dense. And we have LG1Y over on YouTube said, hi, hello. Okay, so um, the thing with these M Grahams, and not just M Grahams, a lot of paints, is oftentimes when you squeeze them out, you have some of the carrier or the what it is suspended in comes out with it. That's okay. Don't worry about it. That's what they suspend the pigment in order for you to paint. So I have some water right here, and I'm going to use, I think right now I'm going to use this is the 1/4 inch flat from Black Velvet, but any flat. I have lots of flats here. Let me see. This is another flat that I have from Princeton. So a nice flat brush like that. And this is a watercolor brush, the Princeton Select. I love these brushes. Oftentimes when I travel, you see the short handle on them. I'll take these Princeton Select with me. And they have a synthetic, what they call golden Taklon. And it's great for acrylics, watercolor, gouache. They're like my all around favorite brushes. So that's the Princeton Select with the turquoise handle. And that's one of them. Let's see. Oh my gosh, y'all. I have so many brushes next to me. Let me just get going with this one. Now, as I'm painting, I always like to have a paper towel in my hand because I don't want this paint, this water that gets up on the ferrule to drip into what I'm working on. So let's just take this. What I like to do myself is, and you don't have to do this, but this is just what I like to do. I like to put a layer of white down and then lay my colors on top of the white or something like this. Okay, so I have a nice brush. You want your paint to be the consistency of like whipping cream, okay, for gouache. That works really well. So let me see if I bring this up a little closer, if you can see what I mean. Like if I do this, see how it's starting to drip down? So it's fluid, but it's still got some thickness to it that it sticks to the brush. Yay. Okay, so I am just gonna go for it here. Let's do it the other way. I could just have it going straight up, but I'm going to put it slightly at angle here. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just using some of the gouache to create the base for my jellyfish. Okay, let's do that. And I can choose to color all the background or not. You see how there's some color showing through? I was grabbing my DoorDash. That's super smart, actually. Uh, I am working with the titanium white, not the zinc white. Where's the titanium white? So I have the M Graham. This is traditional gouache, which means it's rewettable with water. Um, titanium white. Okay. Different from zinc white, right? Zinc white would not be quite as dense as the titanium white. So I like the titanium white. And what I'm doing right now is I am creating a base onto which I am going to paint with other colors. And I'm using a a colored background so that I don't have to paint the background in, right? Whee! Okay, so I'm not trying to be too precise because I'm going to come back later with more colors on top. All right, this is like the little skirt underneath right here. Boo, 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 boo. So I'm just giving myself a base to work with. And then what else do we have? We have the center right here. Welcome in. If you're just joining us, I'm doing a gouache painting, which gouache is an opaque watercolor. I'm doing a gouache painting session of a jellyfish and like a 2-for-1 thing while your watercolor dries. Absolutely, that is correct. So now I want to be sure I have plenty on my brush here because this is a flat brush and I can twist it as I draw it down and then it'll give me thin and thick, right? Right there, ribbons of thin and thick. I love it. Just twisting it, twist. I think a lot of people don't get the most out of their brushes because they don't twist their brushes. Okay, so that is a pro tip. Pro tip, as you're using your brush, think about twisting the brush. And depending on the type of head you have on the brush, the bristles, you're going to get different looks. I even, with my round brushes, I do a lot of twisting of the brush because, again, as you're pulling it, if you're twisting it at the same time, you get these really cool jagged or flowy lines. And that's what I'm doing with this one right here. So I'm filling the head of the brush, the flat brush, with the white gouache. And then as I draw it down, I can twist the brush and then I get thin and I get thick ribbons, right? Because isn't that what we have on the jellyfish? We have the thin and the thick ribbons there. I'm going to do another one coming right off of here, like it's in the background, sort of. Okay, so I'm going to bring one coming out of here. And I'm twisting it, right? To kind of get flat. There. Okay, hello. I'm building the base onto which I'm going to put color on top. Okay. This one, I need it to be a little bit flowier. And I'm actually going to cross it so that we have a little interest there. There we go. Right? I love when they cross. Okay. How's that looking? All right. That's for those. Then what about the little skinny things that come off of there? Because right up here, we have these little skinny things that sort of go off like this. There we go. And remember, I'm just going to come over top of that with other paint. So no worries if it's not perfect. I have an opportunity with another layer of paint to go right over top of it. Okay, let's just do this so we can get it nice. And we are waiting. We're waiting for the other bit to dry, which will be dry in just a minute. So I'm putting those little. I'm just going to go right over top of this with another little thin bit, right? Okay, we're going to be adding some dark color on top of the thin bit. But I think you can see the jellyfish starting to appear, right? So let's do another thin bit back here. There we go. Nice. And then, of course, I'll have another one or two over here coming from the carapace right here. I'm using a very light touch so I can get sort of a thin line here. Right? There we go. There's that one. And then I'm going to do another one over here and make it go like a little bit wild on this edge right here. So I'm using titanium white gouache if you're just joining us to, and then colored paper to do a jellyfish. Okay, that's fun. And I'm just going for it. I didn't draw it first. I'm just looking at a picture right here, an old picture that I got in a lot of postcards with on whatnot. And it had this beautiful picture in it. And it's not a postcard, it's just a picture, but it's lovely. I'm like, I'm saving that because I can use that. There we go. Okay. I mean, that looks like it does look like a um, jellyfish. I can see that I need to bring this together just a little bit more in here so that they separate a little bit further down and be a little bit further down here too. There we go. That's just last minute tweaks because that center part is really tangled up. It's when the tendrils get further down here that they start to separate a little bit more. Okay, let's see. How are those looking? Good, 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 good. I'm gonna do that there. Nice. Okay, so I've got already colored paper for the background, and I'm just giving myself a plan to follow for the jellyfish. Now, before I dump this in the water, because if I dump this white in the water, what's going to happen? It's going to turn all milky, which is fine because when you're dealing with gouache, you end up with milky water anyway. But I like to take as much of the paint off as possible first in a paper towel. Then I'm just going to dunk this real quick. Watch. Boop. Dunk real quick in the water. Oh, you might not have been able to see that because on YouTube. Dunk it in the water and then get more of the paint off. So I'm trying to get as much of that titanium white off of there as possible before I go and do this. Now it's still milky, but it's just not as milky as it would be if I went straight in and had not cleaned the brush first. Okay. So let me just set that off to the side. I like it already, but let's put that off to the side and let's go back to the one that we were putting, the masking fluid on. So I can just see sometimes you get like little tiny bits. Oh, nice. I like it. I like it. All right. So now we're going to put the ocean in the background just to show you an example. This is what I had done as our example piece right here. So I put masking fluid all in this area and then I put the blue. So we're going to do that right now. Now that blue is watercolor. Um, and that's why the blue is so transparent. Okay. Because regular watercolor tends to be more transparent and then gouache is more opaque. But we have this beautiful cobalt blue. So I'm going to put out the watercolor indanthrone blue, but I'm also going to let's see what happens with the cobalt blue that came in the set. So the set I'm talking about is the M Graham primary set, 5-color basic set of gouache, and you have a cobalt blue in there. So let's see how that does. Let's see what it looks like on the palette here. So this is fresh out of the tube. Come on, cobalt blue. It's very sticky. Maybe that's from the honey that's in it, right? Okay, we got some coming out now. Ooh, nice and dark. Okay. Sometimes you get a cobalt blue and it's lighter than that. All the brands have different formulas. Okay, so we're going to be putting this all over the background. So I'm going to use a bigger brush. Actually, maybe I'll use the big. Do I only use gouache? The Heart of Glass asks. No, I paint with just about everything. Most of the time on my lessons, I use gouache and watercolor, but I also teach with acrylics. I've done collage. I love doing collage. Actually, I teach at a local art school at a place called the Herrig Center for the Arts, and I teach mixed media, which is acrylic and collage, as well as I teach Asian brush painting. And on my table here, I have a whole container full of Asian brushes as well because I grew up in Asia and I love doing Asian brush painting. Um, so there are all different kind of things that I do. It just depends on, what kind of project I find. And actually, I had someone ask me on YouTube once, could I teach a color pencil class? So I did that, and we drew shells. No surprise there, with the colored pencil. All right. This is a big old wash brush, 1-inch oval. A lot of people call it a cat's tongue because the way it comes to a point here, but it's a good one for doing a wash. And so I'm going to get it nice and juicy wet. Let's get some of this cobalt blue off of there. So I'm just going to get a bunch of cobalt blue. Now, because we're going to take this off and expose the white, we need a pretty bold blue to go around it. We don't want the blue to be light because if we make the blue light, then you're not going to see much contrast, are you, between the white areas and this blue area. So I'm just going to keep adding some water here, make it really wishy-washy. Fun. I'm losing some hairs because I don't often use this big old cat's tongue wash unless I'm working on a larger piece. And so there's still some little hairs that want to come out from it, like a new brush. So I'm making sure that in this area here that I'm getting some bold color, right? It's okay if the areas around the outside are a little more wishy-washy, but the area right around where it's going to be white and you're going to be putting your color, you want it to be a little more bold. Isn't that fun? So fun. Okay. And so even though this is gouache, which is normally opaque, um, it just depends on how much water you add to it. I'm looking for something to pick up that, oopsies, pick up that hair. I don't want that hair to stay in there. Get off of there, hair. Yee. Okay, got it. Nice. So I can come back in here and get rid of that. So we're just putting in, and I usually sit here and do a couple of strokes because I want to get some variation going there. I want the background to look like there's something happening, something energetic, right? Not just a flat wash. I like my wash to have a little more excitement to it. Yee. There we go. Nice. Make sure there's plenty of darkness there. Okay, cool. All righty. I think I'm going to go in with just a little bit more of the dark, a little more dark right in here. So just like with regular watercolor, as the gouache dries, um, depending on the pigment you're using, some of them get lighter when they dry, some of them get darker when they dry. So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of gauging, okay, this is getting a little bit lighter as it gets dry. So that's why I'm dropping in a little more darkness down here to get a little more contrast, right? That's what we want. I want some contrast. Thank you to everybody over on YouTube who's hitting the like button. I appreciate that. And I don't know if you can hype a live video like this, but if you can, and you're on YouTube, if you would hype it, that would be amazing. Thank you. Okay. So what I want to do, as you can see, is I'm just building up the dark, because you see the contrast already, I'm sure, between the light and the dark. Let me do this. I want to push this up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Now, in the other one that I showed earlier, I used watercolor for the background. So this is an Indanthrone blue from Daniel Smith. And people ask me all the time, oh, can you mix brands like that? Absolutely. Yes, you can. As long as it's like a watercolor or a gouache base, you can layer them. The only thing is that if you try to layer watercolor on top of gouache, that doesn't work very well. But layering gouache on top of watercolor works just great. Oop, it's starting to rain again here. I hope my internet holds up. Touch and go earlier because I'm on the west coast of Florida and we have storms coming through. So gouache is not watercolor. Gouache is what is called an opaque watercolor. Thanks for your question, Jeff, over on Whatnot. Gouache is an opaque watercolor. Now, when you add a lot of water to it, as I'm doing right now, you get watercolor effects from it. But you're going to see once I get into applying the gouache thickly to these other areas that the nice thing about gouache is that you can layer the gouache on top of it itself. You can layer light over dark and it works fine with gouache because it's opaque. But if you try to layer light over dark with watercolor, it doesn't do anything for you. Because the watercolor for the most part is transparent, right? Or translucent. Okay, so I still have a little bit left on there in case I need some more. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort of wipe up some of this, like that. And then I'm going to use a paper towel and wipe up some of that. So I have more room on my palette for when I go to do the jellyfish. Okay, there we go. Now what do we have to do? We have to set this aside and wait for it to dry. Now, this is why I said I like to use, oh, I dripped some water on there. That's okay. If I just leave it, ooh, that's actually a good idea. I like that. I like that effect. Let's drip some more water on there. So then we'll get sort of a bubbly effect. Oh yeah. See, sometimes you just have to go with what's happening in front of you. You take a mistake and turn it into a feature, right? Isn't that what we do? Yeah. Okay. So now I'm gonna pick up some of this right here because I don't want tons of watercolor paint beaded up on it when I go to remove it. Sometimes that watercolor or that color that's left on top of here can smudge, and I don't want any blue smudging into the white. So I'm taking off some of the excess because some of it is just beaded up here. Okay. Just using my paper towel and picking up some of the excess watercolor there, or gouache. There we go. I'm being very gentle because I don't want to disturb at this point. I don't want to disturb the masking fluid, right? I just want to take some of the beaded up color that's on there off of there. That way, when I go to remove the masking fluid, I don't have my my eraser picking up all kinds of color with it. There we go. You probably can't hear it, but ooh, baby, it is raining out there. It's like tropical storm earlier today. Ah, you splutched too much color on the fluid. Okay, see, good. I'm glad that you're picking up some pointers here. That's the whole idea, is we get to share with our artist community, right? And in the meantime, if you're on Whatnot, if you could take a pop into the shop, see if there's anything there of interest to you, that would be great. If you're on YouTube, you can go to the description in the video, and there's a link there to bring you over to Whatnot if you want to come over and take a look at in the shop at some of the goodies that I have. I have both original artworks and prints in the shop. Okay, there we go. Oh, how fun is that? Can you see dripping the water in there, what it did? That's called blooming. And I love those blooms. That adds another layer of texture, right, to what's going on here. Love that. Okay, let's see here. Just making sure I get this excess off of there. Let's do that. Okay. Yay, looking good. Oh, I love it. Eat. Let's see what happens. Now, what do? We set it aside to dry. And that's another reason why I was using the block. Yeah, I love the blooming effect, right? But that's why I'm using the block, because even with the block, can you see the way the paper is rippling a little bit right now? The beautiful thing about having it on a block is that the ripple won't go wild and the edges are not going to curl up and affect the movement of the paint, which sometimes can be an issue, right? If you're working on a pad as opposed to a block. So this block is making it making the paper stay a little bit flatter, which is awesome. Okay, set that aside to dry, and then we'll come back to this one. Ooh, how fun. So now, what do I want to do with this one? Let me look on my color wheel for a minute. Okay, so we've got blue. The opposite of blue is orange, but this is a little bit more, moves this way a little bit. Okay, a little more red orange. I'm just looking to see what's opposite on the color wheel, or you can use a, so that's called a direct complement when you go from here to here. Or you can also do an indirect complement. Let me see back here. So on your color wheel, you see how you have this triangle right here? So that's called a triadic. And the straight up and down is the complementary. So if I turn this wheel a little bit, and I've got like turquoise, which would be a tint of blue, right? Tint of blue, or more over there, maybe sort of like right there. Let's do it with the tint of blue right there. What about when I do blue violet? No. Okay. So right about there. So if I wanted to do triadic, that means following this triangle right here, then I could use a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow on here. And that would be that would look good together with this blue, this turquoise, right? Or red or pink, that kind of thing. So I guess we're kind of staying in the pastel-y sort of feel. So let me, I have to get this somewhat dry. A lot of color in there still. Okay, see how there's so much blue in the water there from doing the background of that other thing? I'm gonna have to change the water because I don't want that blue to invade my pink when I do that. Let me get some more paper. Where are you? There we go. And so, and my sink is on the other side of my house here. I have one half of my house, well, about a quarter of my house, no, a third of my house is my studio, but my sink is in the other side of the house. So I just have like a yogurt container and I pour the excess water in there. And then I have a water bottle ready to go so that I can, there we go. So I can refresh. Let's pick up that blue right here. There's actually a lot more color in here than blue. Yikes. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to get some fresh water for this part. And so what do I want the background to be? I think I want the background. So now I'm going to go to a round brush just to make it easier for me to get around the edges here of this one. And let's get the brush wet. Ooh, okay. So I want some pink. And in the primary set, they have the naphthol red. But naphthol red is very much an orange red. So let me put it out on here so I can show you. That is an orange red. So what's going to happen is when I add white to it, it's not going to give me the pink that I want. So let me show you here. So we've got the naphthol red. Let's draw some white and the naphthol red. And see how it leans toward orange? Leans more toward orange than it does pink. So what I'm going to do, that's why I bought Quinacridone Rose that I showed you earlier, because Quinacridone Rose is, let's see if the color is a violet. Yes. So on the side of the tube, if it's a professional gouache or watercolor or even acrylic, it'll tell you what pigment is inside the tube. So this one says the light fastness is a 1, which is excellent light fastness. And the pigment is PV, so that's the pigment code, PV19. That's pigment violet 19. And that a lot of companies use PV19 as their primary because it mixes really well and it gives you beautiful pinks. So I don't know if you can see it right there, but you will see it when I add the white to it. It's gonna be amazing. So that's why I like, it's not necessarily the name on it, it's the pigment that's in it that I look for, the PV19, okay, for a color, for a mixing violet or a mixing magenta. So a lot of companies call PV19 their magenta color. So this naphthol red gave me kind of an orangey red. And so now when I come over here with the Quin Rose, now I get a brilliant, brilliant pink. Can you see that? Brilliant pink. Yes. So sometimes it just depends on what you're looking for, which one of the pigments you want. So let's turn this a little bit to the side. What do I want to do here? I think what I want to do is I want to thin it out with lots of water so I can just create a wash with it. So I'm going to sort of create a wash here. And I'm going over top of this. And it will reactivate that white just a little bit that's underneath there. But what the interesting thing with gouache is that you need to make your strokes purposeful. Yes, a gouache wash, exactly. But what I found with gouache is you kind of have to make your strokes purposeful. It's like you go in there and you go for it, because since this gouache is rewettable, I can't sit there and go like this. I can't brush on it like you can with acrylic, because otherwise that underlayer will just come right up and blend right in with what's on top of it. And so you have to really get in there and just boom, 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 put your strokes on. Okay. So a little bit more for down here. I'm adding more water. Okay, more water, because I'm hoping that it'll be even a little bit less of a wash here. A little more filmy down this way. There we go. Just a little bit. Bringing a little bit down in there, not too much. Okay, just getting the whole activity down in this area started. There we go. I just want it to be super light at this point. Just a blush in the background. There we go. We'll come back in and define the darkness, the dark versus the light in a minute. There we go. Nice. So that's started. Yay. Now I put a lot of water on there. That's what's going to cause this particular kind of paper to buckle a little bit. Okay. Because it is not made for watercolor. It's not 140 pounds. It's not even like 120 pounds. It's quite a bit less, but it's a nice heavy drawing paper, so it should be able to take some. It does take some of this abuse, but you want to try to use less water on this paper than you would on a watercolor paper. Okay, let's see. How's it going? All right. Come on. Now, there's no masking fluid on this, so I can heat it. This one, there's masking fluid here, so I don't want to heat it, right? Because if I heat the masking fluid, I risk the potential of the masking fluid soaking into the surface of the paper. And that would be a no-no, because then it would be really hard to get it off. It's hard enough to get it off as it is. This one, the background of the paper already has the color, and there's no masking fluid on it. So it absolutely can be heated to dry, because the gouache acts similarly to watercolor. And even with watercolor, you can hit it with a heat tool and have it dry, right? Okay, so we're just going to do this to sort of speed it along a little bit. There we go. Now, that's not to say, yes, the heat tool. That's not to say that other artists do. I've seen them use, a heat gun around, not directly on your masking fluid, but around the masking fluid. But my advice is going to be patient, wait till this dries, and then take this off. Okay. It'll just, you'll save yourself heartache after you've done all that work to that point. Okay. This is beginning to, it's not completely dry, but it's beginning to get there. This part is dry. So let's see what else we want to put up there. Ooh. Okay. I had the idea that I would use purples, maybe, that dioxazine purple that I showed you right here. Yes, I'm bringing the heat. You got it. So here's that absolutely gorgeous I can talk. Dioxazine purple. So I'm going to put a little bit of dioxazine purple here. Dioxazine purple is super dark. Okay. It looks like black coming straight out of the tube. So you have to either add white or tons of water to bring to actually show the color, because otherwise it looks black. So now we're starting to see. Can you see the color? I don't know if you can see it on there, but yeah, it's a dark, beautiful, rich, dark purple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my jellyfish right here and kind of get an idea of where that darkness needs to be. It kind of goes around here. So some of it comes and sort of branches off like that. So I'm just looking at the jellyfish and dropping in some of the shapes that I see there. Okay. Oops. See, these brushes are relatively new, so they have little hairs on them. So what we're doing is I'm building this part right across the top here. So, and this purple looks nice and dark against the light pink. Okay. It was just that little bit. There's another little bit coming down here. There's actually a little bit sort of coming down here too. Go. And little bitty bits here. So I'm using the size 10 right now of the round black velvet from Silver Brush. So I don't want to put too much purple on there. I just want to give the impression sort of the shape, right? Because the jellyfish is rounded on top here. Oh, don't get paint on there. Other colors are going to come up on here too. So, okay, sort of beak like that. And then another one, sort of like that. Okay. So that gives us the idea of that. So this is a lot less washed. Yes, less water. Exactly. Less water and a little more like milk consistency. Okay. So it's not quite cream like we did with the white, but it's also not a wash like we did over here. Like, see how the wash, it'll drip, but this, it's not, because it's more like a milk or a half and half. Okay. Consistency. Let's get this to come down just a little bit more like that. Okay. And then this one I want to have come down just a little more like that. There. And then I want there along the bottom here, there's also some of these. So I'm going to just bring this, I'm just looking at the picture and kind of bringing out some of the shape that I see in the picture. Along here, we've got sort of, okay, a little bit more along here. And a little bit more just right along here. There we go. So that is just putting in the darks there. Let me see. I'm looking at the picture and I'm looking at this and saying, is there anything else, anywhere else where I want to put the purple right now? It doesn't matter because I can re-wet this, right? I can go back in here with a little bit of water and I can re-wet it. But I do like when it's fresh out of the tube. I like to kind of look and see and make sure that I've got everything that I want put out there on the first. Okay, there was a little bit more coming down that way, and then just a little bit more over here. More shape, right? There. So I give it a more of a round look there. Okay, cool. Now, I'm going to be using yellow on this. Yellow will work great on the pink. Yellow will look horrible on the purple. Okay, so it's important to know your color theory when you're painting something like this. So I'm going to show you separately on a little separate piece of paper. There we go. Let me just turn this over. So here's our purple, right? And a little bit of yellow. Let's use some Gamboge, which is like a nice warm yellow right here. Dink. And if oh, you're not good at color theory? That's one of the classes, Jeff, I'm going to be teaching at the Herrig Center in the fall. I'm teaching color and composition. So it's a 4-week class, and it goes for 3 different months. So, and then I'm also doing a color and composition, what's it called? Boot camp, which is a weekend thing. It's a Friday and a Saturday, because then that way people who work who can't come during the day to the classes can come in and do the boot camp, which is Friday and Saturday. And okay, so I cleaned my brush off, and now I'm going to put some yellow. Thank you. And that's in Bradenton. I live near Bradenton, Florida. So you see that beautiful, warm new Gamboge, right? This color right here. When I combine that with the purple, I'm going to get what some people call mud. You see how it looks ugly when they're combined? It turns into like this browny green. I actually use that combination for skin tones. You see there? Ew, right. But if you use it in the right proportion, you can get beautiful luminous skin tones out of it. Um, like right now, it's a little bit too yellow, but that would be okay if you were doing Asian skin tones to have that slight yellow undertone. If you put a little more purple in it, like this, you'll get a little more neutral. So there's a neutral color. Beautiful for skin tones, y'all. It's like that is one of my tricks that I have up my sleeve is and that's another reason for having dioxazine purple is you combine your purple with your yellows and you get different forms of skin tones. Oh, it's awesome. And who'd have thought, right? It's not logical. It does not make sense, but that's the way color works. And yes, so see the color now. And if you want it to be like a darker, rich, beautiful dark skin tone, you just keep adding more purple to it. Add more purple. And then it becomes richer and richer and darker. It's fabulous. Yeah, so that's how I get my skin tones. But if you try to just lay yellow over top of purple, it gets this ugly, what people call mud, right? So the same combination can give you skin tones or it can give you mud. It just depends on how you layer it and how you mix it. And okay, so I don't want any yellow. See, I'm still waiting for that other thing to dry. I watched a lady the other day start with a whole blue person, and eventually, after adding more color, it became skin tone. Yep. With blues, I use New Gamboge, which remember how I said it has sort of an orangey undertone? So the opposite color on the color wheel of blue is orange. So when you put the two together, it neutralizes. And so you can put washes of this orange leaning yellow on top of the blue, and then it begins to change into a brown and becomes a skin tone. It's crazy, but that's how color works. That's why it's really helpful. I learned color theory by taking a boot camp at the Boca Museum Art School years ago. And I'm very grateful for that boot camp because I learned a lot and now I can like mix anything. Yes, I do like to teach. Absolutely. So this will work okay over top of the pink, but it won't work okay over top of the purple here, right? So I want just a slight bit of yellow. I want to warm it up just a little bit because right now I've got cold, cold, cold in terms of the color. Okay, which is fine. I could do the whole thing cold. That would be fine. But I want to warm it up a little bit. So I've just got that tiny bit of New Gamboge there. Tiny bit. And so I want plenty of water with it. So it goes on thinly. And now I was mentioning earlier about the ferrule. There's a big old bunch of water right there. So I don't want that running down into what I'm working on, right? So I clean that off all the time. Okay, here we go. Welcome in. I see some new people are popping in. I'm doing a gouache and watercolor workshop right now. So if you're interested in art and original art and a smattering of art supplies, then you can go on Whatnot into the shop at the bottom of the screen and check it out. I have a bunch of stuff in the bin. So now I've got lots of water on here. I have a little bit of that New Gamboge. I'm just going to drop in like some yellow here. Remember, what did I say? Purposeful strokes, right? Don't be timid. Don't overstroke it. Right now, when I did that, it picked up some of the pink. Do you see that? It lifted the pink because the pink is not like super dry. Okay, now I want to have a little bit of a glow at the top, but I don't want to get any of it on the purple. Okay, because what'll happen, the purple will start to look ugly if I put some of this warm yellow over top of it. So I'm going to turn my artwork so that I can get at it better. And I'm going to start over here. And what I'm trying to do is put a little bit of a glow on the top of it, right? So I've just got a bit of a glow. And I'm going in between the purple because otherwise, if I get it on the purple, what's going to happen? It's going to look ugly. No, no muddy jellyfish. That's right. No, no, no. Okay. So I can bring it in between right here. Gingerly, I'm gingerly drawing it down so that it does not get on the purple. Okay, nice. Now what that's going to do is it's going to give that the top of it a bit of a glow. And see, there's a little bit of white around the outside, so I'm sort of putting it on that white so it'll give it that little bit of extra glow, right? Oh, there we go. See there? How fun. Nice, nice. Now I can see that what I'm going to need to do is right along this section right here, I'm going to need to darken it just a little bit because I want it to look like you've got the bulb and then you've got like a rim and then you've got the bottom section and then the under section. So right along here, it needs to go, well, it can either go up this way or it can go down this way. I'm going to do it sort of up. Okay, so what I need is a little bit darker of the pink. Which one is the pink? This one is the pink. So I just want the pink to be a little bit darker. So I'm just dipping into the pink. That's the Quinacridone rose. And then adding it to the mixture that I already used to do the wash, right? Actually, I need to make it slightly wetter, but just slightly darker. Okay, so here we go. We're going to add some dimension. And because it's pink, it's in the same family on the same side of the color wheel as purple, right? So it doesn't matter if it goes over the purple. I'm just going to bring it here and sort of drop it in right here. Just sort of make it look like it belongs there. Okay. There we go. Incorporating it into there. There you go. So now we have a bit of a rim there, but I also want to put a bit of a rim down here. So let me sort of bring it down. And then I'm creating a rim along the bottom here as well. I want some sort of separation between where that comes out. So I'm just adding this right here. But it doesn't matter if it goes on to the purple because the purple and the pink are in the same family. Okay, I don't like the bits on the side. So damp paper towel. I'm just going to lift this up just a little bit. I'm going to come over here and lift this up. Well, they're still damp. Okay. Here you go. And then, a lot of times I will look at it and evaluate it and be like, oh, okay, I need to integrate this a little bit more. Let's say I need to integrate it a little bit so that it doesn't look quite so separated. So I'm just using some water and bringing this down into here a little bit and make it look sort of like there's sections here, right? That it comes down and there are little sections, pink sections or darker pink sections. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, nice. Now I have to set this aside to dry because it's time to work on the other one. So I like the color combination with the background though. I like where it's going. And then this is the last area to work on there, but I'm just going to set it aside and let it dry while we come here. Let me move this out of the way. All right, the moment of truth. I'm going to use, thank you, Jeff. Said, love it. The dimensionality is making it pop. Okay, so here's where, you really want to make sure that um, everything on here is dry, because otherwise, as I drag this across the white, all these little blue spots, so I'm going to bring it up closer so you can see. Do you see the little blue spots on there? If any of those were damp or wet, it would cause that white to turn blue, and then that would be annoying, right? We want it to be white. Love it. I do love that. I love using masking fluid. It takes a little extra work and a little extra planning, but wow. Wow, right? The effect is woohoo, fabulous. And believe it or not, you can even use this latex masking fluid for acrylics as well. So I wouldn't recommend it with a lot of layers of acrylic over top of it, but you definitely can put one layer of acrylic paint over top of it and still pull it off. This particular brand, the Pevio drawing gum, it works with the acrylics. I'm not sure about the other brands, but I know that this one will work. So periodically, as I'm doing this, I have to take my eraser and get some of that off of there. I get lots of bits. Hold on. I have to put that over the trash bin. There are going to be lots of little bits. I know sometimes you watch people and they grab an edge and then they pull on it and then a whole bunch of it comes off. But in my experience, if you try to do that on a watercolor, you risk tearing the paper. So to me, it's just better to take your time, let it be a meditation, listen to your favorite true crime or whatever, right? I know I saw one of you said earlier, patience, but yeah, it really helps when you're working with this masking fluid. Ooh, look at that. The the contrast between that white and that dark background, right? Oh, it's awesome. Okay, cool. There we go. And then that way, the white can accept the contrast is crazy, right? Especially with that blooming. I know, I love the blooming. And the blooming was by accident, right? I dropped some water on there and I was like, oh, I like what that's doing. Let's add more. Go with the flow. Okay. That's good, good, good. Now, one of the reasons, if I'm going to do something orange, like these are orange on a blue background, right? That's because they're in an aquarium and the light is shining on them. So that's why they have this glow. Because I've been down in the Bahamas and in the Caribbean, and when you see them under the water, they don't look quite so nice because there's just the light from the sun above, and the deeper you go, the less you're able to see them. Right? They become very translucent in the ocean water. But my favorite thing in the Caribbean was I was down in one of the British Virgin Islands and saw, I think it was Virgin Gorda, and saw a little octopus about this size scurry underneath a rock. And I showed my daughter. I was like, look, 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 an octopus. That was so cool. But jellyfish all over the place. My favorite jellyfish were in the Bahamas at night. The little ones that um, are bioluminescent. Oh my gosh, y'all, those are so cool. When they're out, they're floating near the surface of the water. And then when it's dark out, you just look out and you see all these little things floating in the water like little lanterns. It is so stinking cute. But it's hot. Like you have to have a generator and air conditioning because otherwise it is just so sticky. Like you don't even want to sleep. It's horrible. I went in the summertime with my kids on a boat to the Bahamas. So that was fun. Okay, let's see. Jeff said, I'd have been like, crap, it's ruined. I got to start over. Ah, yeah. If you don't, if you try to put orange over top of this blue, that will not work because the orange over top of the blue is going to be like this. It's going to look like mud. Okay. Because they're opposite each other on the color wheel. Okay, there we go. Just about. We're getting there. We're almost done. Almost done. See, I just stop periodically to pull some of it off of the eraser. Okay, let's just make sure we're getting all that off of there. See, this area right over here is where I made the mistake. And then I cleaned it up prior to putting the watercolor on there. And so the watercolor went over top of it just fine. So like I said, if you make a mistake, just let it dry, roll it off, and start over. Or like I made a fake mistake that I just rolled it off and then painted over top of it, and it was fine. So, how many of you in the chat have used masking fluid before? And did you find it successful or not successful? Come on, tell me your stories. Oh, like I said, when I left one of these, I had gone somewhere and I was doing a demo and then I threw it in my car and I didn't bring it right into the house afterwards. And oh my gosh, y'all, that's when I was so disappointed because the Florida heat just baked the masking fluid right into the surface of the paper. I was so disappointed. There we go. And I've seen videos on YouTube before of people working with uh, what were they doing? People on YouTube, doing comparisons of different um, masking fluids. So you can definitely find those on the internet. It's just, I've worked with Pebeo for years. And so they gave this to me. I'm like, thank you. Because they like me to show it to you and show you how well it works because it does. It is one of the top brands. I've had students tell me before that when they were in college, like art college, they were like, "Oh yeah, that's the one my teacher told me to buy." Is the Pebeo drawing gum? It's world famous. Okay, look at that. Look at that. Let's see. The Heart of Glass said I used it last week and could not get it off. LOL, I have used it successfully though. Uh-oh. I wonder if you heated it and you couldn't get it off. Oh, you know what else matters? Okay. Paper matters, y'all. You see the abuse I'm giving this watercolor paper? This is 100% watercolor, 100% cotton watercolor paper. And 100% cotton watercolor paper is, just think of it like your favorite t-shirt that you can beat up and still comes out looking fab. Okay. That's the beauty of using 100% cotton paper. And I will have a link to this paper in the description of the video on YouTube tomorrow. But this happens to be the Fumui, the brand, Chinese brand, FUUMUUI, watercolor paper bra, cold press, 100% cotton. Yeah, it looks cool, right? That looks cool. Okay, I have lots and lots of bits right here of that. And I always like to run back over it with my fingers to make sure that I've got everything up. Make sure your fingers are dry. Do you ever use hot press paper? Absolutely. I love using hot press paper. The Art of Glass, the Heart of Glass asked. Yeah, I love hot press paper. I especially love it for gouache when you want a flat look, not a textured look. Like I knew I was doing this oceany theme in the background, so I wanted a more sort of, I wanted the paint to move around a little bit more in the background. Normally I would paint gouache on hot press paper, which is a flat paper instead of a textured paper. And Famui makes also a hot press 100% cotton as well. So now let's look at this. That isn't that lovely? I love this. Now you've got this beautiful um, area that's blocked out for you. You have a gorgeous background. The trick is not to get any of the paint you're going to put here. Don't let it drop on here, okay? Because otherwise, this is re-wettable. And so if some of your paint that you're putting here drips on here, it's just going to make a mess. So try to be neat from this point forward. All right, let's see what we're going to do here. I think I'm going to do the orange on here. So to create our orange, I'm going to use some new Gamboge. Oh, you know what I did with the other one? Okay, this is what I did to start. I like to, just me, I like to put white all over there and then build my layers on top of that because these, this is supposed to be kind of translucent-y, right? Like that. And there's a lot of lightness in the jellyfish. So I want to put white all over it. That's just me. You don't have to do that. You can just go on with color, but I want paint to be in the white areas here, okay? Because if you don't have paint to layer on top of, you have to head out. Okay. Thank you, the Heart of Glass. I'm glad you gave me a follow. I normally do an art class every Sunday, most Sundays, and it is free. So feel free to come back. But thanks for being here and thanks for interacting. I appreciate it. So I'm going to take this white. I like to have the white background myself, even though, yes, the paper is white. For me, if I put a layer of paint there first, then when I'm layering on top of the paint, I get more of an intermingling between the various paint colors. So right now I'm using titanium white. Plus, if you're using the titanium white, which is very opaque, you can cover up, like you can, the edges. Let's say that you don't like the way the edges came out. You can use the white. It will sit on top of that blue. So you can use it to perfect your edges. So I'm just using a round brush here. I'm not necessarily going all the way to the edge. I'm just filling the majority of it. Okay. With the titanium white, just to give myself a base. You don't have to do this. You can just go on and start building your color, but this is what I like to do. And so I've got my white here. So that way I have a layer of color that I can work into. Okay, there we go. I'm going to bring some of the white down here too. Nice. Okay. Just, I'm being careful. I don't want to go too much over any of the edges. This size 10 brush is a little bit big for what I'm doing right now, but it's okay. I'll get over it. It's all right if some of it comes off and the blue shows through because this bottom section is supposed to be very translucent. That's the cool thing about jellyfish, right? They're super translucent. So it's okay if your white goes a little bit over onto the blue. It'll just look translucent. Okay. There we go. What I don't want to do is I don't want to drag it through the blue too much because if I do, what'll happen is it will pick up the blue in with the white, and I don't want that. I just want the white to sort of sit on top of the blue there. So I'm just taking a little bit more of the white and adding a little bit more of the, little bit more water to it to get it to flow. Eee, come on, you can do it. You can do it. And this will just help me when I'm putting my next layers of color on top. If you try to put the paint directly onto uh, the white here, the paint doesn't flow as well. You get more crisp lines. If you want something that's a little more ethereal, put down a layer of paint first. Now, I'm not going to do this on these skinny ones because I want the line to be a little more crisp on the skinny ones. But on this area down here, this part of the jellyfish is much more ethereal. So it's okay if I have a little more wisp in here. Okay. Just that little bit more. Come on, white, you can do it. I want it to last to cover the whole thing that I'm doing here. Okay. Nice. Now you don't have to be perfect. It's okay. There we go. A little bit more here. And I try to lift the brush up at the end stroke so that I get a little bit of a tip to that. So it just sort of boop, goes down and gives me an interesting end to that. It's true there too. Okay, a little bit more right there. Nice. So now I've got this layer of titanium white all around the top here, and then all down that middle part right there. Nice. Okay. So that's what I like to start with that. Now, again, this brush has lots of titanium white in it, right? I'm actually going to go just a little bit more here. I want it to just be a little more ethereal, so where I can see some of the blue through there. I've just decided that I'm sort of bringing it down a little bit more so I get little peeps of that blue through there. So it makes it look a little bit softer, right? Nice. Okay, a little more jelly-like. Fabulous. A little bit more here. There we go. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to wipe out as much of the white as I can, dip, pull it back out, wipe out more white, right? So the water doesn't go crazy with white. There we go. I'm probably going to need to use white again. As I'm mixing my colors, but that's okay. That's okay. So I'm going to put these right here. Can you see those? You can kind of see those. Okay. So I'm going to move my water over so I can put my palette back here. Let's see. What are we doing? We're doing orange. So let's, that Gamboge, the new Gamboge is going to make a beautiful warm. Did I use white on the darker tendrils? Okay. So I used white here in the big center tendrils. So if you look here, you see the center tendrils right here. They're very wispy and kind of there's a lot of white in them. So, but these little tendrils on the side are more dark. So I used the white, the titanium white, all the way down these large pieces right here, but not on these little white ones right here, the little tiny tendrils, okay? Because those are going to have a darker color on them. Okay. So since we want an orange, instead of using this azo yellow, which you actually, let me do that. I'll use the azo yellow wants to jump out of there. I'll use a little of the azo yellow so you can get a pretty bright orange. What I'm doing right now is I'm using the colors from the basic set. So I've got the azo yellow and the naphthol red. Actually, this is the naphthol red right here. So I was thinking that's how you would do it. Yep, that's how I did it. So I've got some of the yellow here. That's the bright azo yellow, and I'm adding some of that naphthol red right here. So I'm going to get a peachy, you see there how it's kind of a peachy orange? But if I want to get like a bam in your face orange, I'm going to use the Gamboge, and I'm going to use the PV19, the Quinacridone Rose, okay? That'll give me a punchier orange, because this, the new Gamboge, already tends toward orange. So if I put that over here, and if you look at it, you're going to see it already has, it's much oranger. So this new Gamboge is much oranger than this azo yellow, right? This is more lemony, and this is more toward the orange or more warm. So I'm going to take that warm, and I am going to add to it the rose, and then you'll see the orange that that creates. Much more toward what you would think of as an orange, where this lemon azo yellow and the naphthol red gave you a peachier color. Okay, so I definitely want to use the new Gamboge together with the Quinacridone rose, and that will give me a better orange, a punchier orange, a little bit more of the yellow right there. Okay, cool. Now I have a better orange to work from. That's a nice sort of dark orange. There you go. So now I'm going to use that, and I'm going to start dropping in some of the, again, just like I did with the purple over here, right? Where I dropped in those purple bits on that one. I'm going to drop in some orange bits over here with the brush. So let's just get some of the orange coming down here. Press the brush a little. You see how rich this orange is? I'll bring it up closer to you in just a minute. Just sort of doing that. Okay, let me show you. See how rich that orange is? Wow. That's using the Quinacridone Rose, which is a PV19, and your Gamboge, okay, which is a richer yellow. Okay, and now we've got just a little bit of this here. So I'm building the shape of the parapet, the carapace. See how they're coming around like that? And of course, over here, I'll bring them around the other way. So let's continue with this. There's just a little bit more here. And then this sort of comes down like this. There we go. And then we've got a little bit more coming in like that. And then we've got, so I'm just following along with Mother Nature, just enhancing what Mother Nature's given us there in the picture. So I also have, coming from up here, I have another like sort of bold line to offset the bold line from the other side. There we go. Yay. And then over here, I've got a few more dots. And I definitely have a lot more here. Let me get the one on the end first. Okay, I need a little more paint. It's beginning to get a little thinner there. I can see more of the white coming through. So now it's moving in this direction toward the center. And we have a couple more little bits here. Let's add a few more marks over here so that we've got, there we go. And that's not what's, that's not what's in Mother Nature, but I'm adding it for the drama, right? When we do it, when we're an artist, we can add a little bit more drama. So, oh, thank you, Jeff. Said stunning. So now you can see what's happening there. And I want to create a little bit of a wash for the top area. So what am I going to do? Add lots of water in here. And if you're using a good quality gouache, these are professional grade gouache, um, you're going to have tons of pigment in here, and it's super hard. Even adding water, it's still super hard to get it to be a wash because it's just so highly pigmented. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing, because then you use less paint each time you paint, right? Okay, this is too wet. So I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm just going to wick a little bit of that out of there. I'm adding more water because see how dark it's coming out? Ugh, come on now. Come on now. More water. I can see from putting it in the napkin there. It's just so highly pigmented. Come on, y'all. I want it to be more washy. Okay, now it's more washy. Here we go. I don't want it to be too wet. So right here on the belly of the brush, I can sort of tap that on my paper towel and that wicks away some of the water. Okay, I'm going to turn this a little bit so my hands go in the right way. Yes. Okay, cool. That's giving me more of the look that I want. I don't want to disturb the wet paint that's there. I just want to drop in a bit of a wash around it. I probably should have been more patient and waited a little bit longer, but I'm impatient. I had this orange already on my palette, so that's why I wanted to use it. Let's get it out around the edge here and out around the edge here. A little bit more down in here. There we go. A little bit more in here. Now I can sort of build this right here and sort of bring it down like this. Okay, so bringing it down a little bit just to give a little bit smidge of color to this area. Uh-oh. No. Quick. Got to get that up. Okay. Oh, see, there was a little drip over there. Dang it. That's okay. That'll be under the mat. So I won't have to worry about it. Yee. I'm trying to sort of bring it around there. There we go. Okay. So now, interesting, right? Interesting. We got a little more going on. I'm going to add a little bit more water to my brush. Let's see if I can get like super soupy. Yeah. More soupy. Good. So it is hard to get a wash because there's so much pigment in here that it definitely wants to deposit lots of pigment. Okay, that's better. That's even more of a wash. Okay, good. The orange is super pigmented for sure. Yeah. All these colors of this this M Graham, super pigmented. They are super pigmented. Now, remember I had that layer of white down already. So that's the beautiful thing here is that wash is combining with the white to make it like look very ethereal, right? I love that. Love that. Okay, I like where it's going. I do. Now, I know we've got a harsh line here. So I'm just bringing a little bit of water on my brush and trying to um, make that line not look quite so harsh, bringing it up into the top part here. Just the smidge, just a smidge, just to break that hard line there so it looks a little softer around the edge. That's why it helps to have brushes with a really good tip to it to be able to make that transition there. Okay, cool. I like it. I like where it's going. Okay, now up here at the top, if you look at these, see how the light is coming from the top? And naturally, even when they're in the water, the light is coming from the top. So I like to put a little bit of yellow there. Okay, here we go again. Lots and lots of water because it's so pigmented. Okay, so I have lots of water on my brush. I started with lots of water on my brush. Let's see how we do. So yes, oftentimes I pick my artwork up and I turn it. Eek. Let's just drop some. Yes. Okay, cool. Some of that orangey yellow. We don't want to get the yellow on the blue because what do yellow and blue make when they blend together? What do yellow and blue make? Green, right? So I don't want the yellow getting into the green, into the blue, I'm sorry, because otherwise you're going to have a green glow around your the top of your critter. That would not look good. Yeah, the ethereal looks good, right? Makes great sense why you use the white base layer. Yep, because if I didn't have it, there'd be nothing to sort of blend that wash in with, right? Okay, I'm going a little more yellow because I like it, but it's combining with the white. So I needed to drop just a little bit more of the yellow in there. I can always go back later if it dries and it's not punchy enough for me, right? To add more yellow. But there we go. Yeah, this little yellow is encroaching on the blue. No, 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 don't do that because otherwise you're going to turn green. And we do not want our jellyfish to look green anywhere. Okay, cool. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit into these white spots here so that it's integrated. So it's not just on top, it's kind of around the top area. There you go. Nice. Just bring it sort of bringing that yellow down into here. Again, with the same direction as it would be growing like that. Okay, this is fun. All right, cool. That gives you the impression of the shape. There we go. A little bit more. Sorry, I'm zoning out a little bit. As we do when we paint, right? As we do. So I've just got that tiny hint of new Gamboge on my brush. And I'm just trying to give it a little bit of, bring that tiny warmth of yellow down into the, along with the shape. Okay, there we go. All right. So can you see it now? Hey, Mac, welcome in over on Whatnot. Okay. So I'm happy with where that's going. Now, the way that you address what's down here, you know, I can do more of the yellow. There seems to be a little bit of that orange, sort of a washy feel along these ribbons down here. So I still have a little bit of that orange wash, but I think I might, let's try the larger brush to start with. Okay. So again, very ethereal. So lots of water on the brush and only a little bit here. Okay. Just, I'm actually leaving a little bit of white there, a little bit of white space just to sort of be a delineator between the bottom section and the top section. And I'm just bringing a little bit of this down into the ribbons just to start. Bring a little bit of it here. Yep. And what I generally do is I just layer to get some darkness going. Now, if I took this washy color right here and I put it over the blue, it would look like mud because the blue and the orange are opposite each other on the color wheel. They look great next to one another, but they look sort of muddy when you blend them together. Okay. That's why it's really helpful if you give yourself a little bit of white. You use the masking fluid. Okay, lovely. I'm using sort of different concentrations here to come down. All right, nice. I like where that's going. And then now I've got these sort of strings that come down, the little ones. This is the main part of ribbons in the middle there. Then there's going to be some these little tendrils are very dark. Let me just do this again right here because it looks like I need some dark in here where it's sort of where they meet. So I'm adding a little bit of dark orange in there. Here. There we go. A little bit of dark here too. Just where these various sections sort of break off from each other, you know there's going to be a bit of a shadow in there. And then I need a bit of a shadow up in here too for the various sections to come together. So as that begins to dry a little bit, then you can drop in your little marks up here. And up in here, go like that. Okay, that's a little more subtle. It gives you some more subtle marks up in that section. Boop. I'm just giving it a little bit more. Take your time and just sort of build it out, okay? You don't have to be in a hurry. Just because you don't want to go too fast to put too much down and then be like, I need to change it out, right? Okay, that's good right there. Now let me show you here these darker ones. So on the darker ones, I like the idea of the naphthol red, which is a little bit orangey, right? This naphthol red, where if I used the quinacridone magenta, yeah, each stroke makes a bit of a different color. Yes. And I'm going to go with a smaller brush, right? Because I'm going to be, I want to go along those white areas. So this is a size 6. Let me see. The size 2 is a little bit, is the 2 good? This is a 4, right? Yeah, okay, we're going to start with the size 2 because you see how tiny it is? So that should be good to start. So I could go in with this magenta or the, what's it called? The quinacridone rose, but the quinacridone rose is a little bit, it's too close to these other colors here. I want something that's slightly different. And so that naphthol red that was in the primary set is redder. So let's fill our brush with that and see what happens. Now I'm going to get a little bit of the rush of paint off the belly of the brush because otherwise it just comes off the brush crazy. Okay, I'm right-handed. So I'm talking to myself. I'm right-handed. So I need to start from over here and move to the right. Okay. I also have to watch my hand with what's here. See, there's a little bit of wetness here. So I just have to be careful. So I'm going to go ahead with this naphthol and sort of bring it in like this and bring it along. I don't have to fill the whole white area if I don't want to. I think that's fine if you don't fill the whole white area. Now, red and blue make purple, so it wouldn't matter if you overlap this a little bit. It would still work just fine. Okay, let me just, I constantly have to go back to pick up more paint. Okay. So this, I think I said is the size 2. Yeah, the size 2. I could have used the size 4 because I'm having to double the stroke, but that's okay. There we go. See how this naphthol red is it's punchier. It's Normally, naphthol red is semi-transparent, not transparent. Let's see what they say on here. Naphthol red. It's either semi-transparent or opaque. Light fastness is a 2, so that's good. And PR 112, but it doesn't say the transparent. Does it say the transparency on the front? No, it does not. But this naphthol red is usually semi-opaque or semi-transparent. So it has really good coverage. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely the right color to use here. And that really, this frames that center part. Plus, I can come back in this area and use some of it once I get these parts put in there. Yee, you can do it. You can do it. Let's get a little more water on there. Sometimes there's, with gouache, there really is a lot of practice with the water to paint ratio. Lots and lots and lots of practice for that. And every time you switch to a different brand, you have to practice with that brand to be sure you're getting the right ratio because all of them are a little bit different, especially this M Graham has the honey in it. So I find that as I'm painting with it, I have to keep going back and grabbing more water. There we go. Nice. It's looking good, looking good. I like where it's going. Okay, fill her up, fill her up. Because it's semi-opaque, I can go over top of the end with the little tiny tip right there. It's fine, fine. I need it to be a little thicker up here because it's a little bit thicker down there. So I'm covering a little bit more of the white. There we go. Nice. And now some people don't like leaving white showing, but I personally like leaving white showing. So all the darker tendrils will be the same color. Well, I can differentiate them with dimension after I've put in the basic color. Then I can come back on top with little details. So I'm just filling them with the dark to start. The beautiful thing about gouache, I mentioned earlier, as opposed to watercolor, is that you can come back on top of the gouache with a lighter color gouache and it will sit on top. As long as, like I said, you don't scrub it, it will, you can put your highlights in on top. So after this red is fully dry, I could go back in there and drop some more white on it, or some pink on it, or some yellow on it. And as long as I'm using the paint close to full strength, it will, it'll be good. Oh, that's looking good. Oh, that's right. You forgot. Not with regular watercolor, but yes, with gouache, it will sit on top. You just have to use it in its cream state, meaning quite thick in order for it to sit on top. Okay, here's one that's tucked back in behind there. Comes here, tucked behind, and then it comes across here. Go. Right, this one sort of weaves in and out, and then down here. There we go. Nice. Fun, right? Fun, 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 fun. Okay. Lovely. So that's that one. And then here is another one that we're going to assume goes up behind there, right? So this comes here and goes like this. Ah, you know what? This one that I'm doing right now, it may come from, I'm going to show you in a second. Because besides being around the back of this center portion, there are also some that are across the front. So I can make this one come from here and bring it down. Okay, so let's try that on top. So I want to be sure I have this in a nice creamy consistency. So it'll go on top of that sort of orangey pink. Ah, I'm going to turn this upside down so I can draw it up here this way. So this one, I'm going to pretend like it's coming up this way, right? So I can put it on top of here. I don't want to brush it too much because if I do, what's going to happen? If I brush it too much, it's going to combine with what's down underneath it, but that's okay. That is a-okay. There. Okay. So once this dries, I will add a little bit more to it because right now it's soaking into what's underneath there. Gorgeous. Thank you. So this is soaking a little bit into the layer underneath, but once it's dry, I'll be able to put another layer on top to get the richness, right, of the color to sit on top there. But again, this is the Naphthol red. All right, let's do these two right here. So this one maybe is coming from the top as the front as well. Yeah, this can, I'm gonna say this one's coming from the front and not from the back. Okay. So the ones that are coming from the back, like this one right here, can be coming from the back side of it. And so what I'll do is I will fuzzy this top part up just a little bit so it doesn't look quite so bold. I'll put a little bit where the size 2 comes in handy when you're doing these details, like in the tight areas here. There we go, to have a little more brush control, right? The 4 would work too, but the 2 is just that little bit more precise. Okay, there we go. Ah, a little bit more. So it's looking good. It's beginning to look good. Good, good, good. Let's do this. It's a lot of red right now, for sure. But like I said, I could go back and put white highlights, put yellow highlights on top, start to change the color of what's here a little bit if I wanted to. There are, I think gouache opens some more possibilities because of the way that you can use a thick color on top and it will sit on top for your highlights, which is really nice. Ooh. See, I can see right now, this is going to need another one right here or right in this area right here. But I will do that after the fact. What I'm doing tonight is to show you the process. And then normally I will finish the artwork after the workshop. I don't always get the artworks done during the workshop. I finish them after the workshop. And then I show them to you the next week when I do my next workshop. Uh, let me see here. How we doing? How we doing? On that one? Nice. 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 Nice Lovely, lovely. So at this point, that one's pretty dry. So while I have the fresh paint here, cream consistency, I'm going to go over top of this because it lost a little bit of its brightness because it's on top of the peach and white. Okay, there we go. Now it's back to being bold, more bold. There's just not white underneath it, that's all, which is fine. Fine. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. You see this little area right here? That needs one of these tendrils, in my opinion. I mean, you don't have to, but I feel like it could use another tendril right there. And then to come down here and probably stay along this peachy, wispy kind of color, because all of the other ones I used white and put them back behind there. So that will have to stay on there. At some point, you do need to leave it and let it dry and then come back, because your paint will sit best on top of the other layers underneath if it's dry when you try to put the new layers on top. Okay, let me see if there's anything else I want to do to define this area. Yeah, let's do a little bit more. I'm going to do some of that peachy, some of the red that was from a combination of the Gamboge and the rose. So it gives me that punchier orange. Okay, come on, punchy orange. There we go. Okay, a little bit more of that. And now I'm going to come down here, and there's just along the bottom here, there's a little bit more of like orange along here. Okay, little bits like this right along the bottom. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And then, do I want to do anything else along the bottom there? I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. So this is where I can use some of this that's a little bit lighter, and I can kind of come into the tops of these tendrils. And that way they sort of melt into the top, right? So let's do that here. It sort of melts into the top area right there. Same here. I'm just bringing it down just a little bit, right? On the top there. So it's not too red at the top, and it incorporates it into the body of the jellyfish. There we go. Yes, I like that. I like that. It blends it into the body of the jellyfish better. Okay. So it's blending better there. All right. I like where that's going. I'm going to stop with this one right now. I like the direction it's going. Sometimes it's better if you stop and then look at it again tomorrow with fresh eyes, right? Or you go and you have lunch and then you come back and you go, oh, okay, now I see it needs this or that. The other thing you can do is you can take a picture of it and look at it through the photograph, turn it upside down and look at it upside down. Sometimes things will pop out at you that way, and change it to black and white. So get rid of the saturation of the color and look at it that way as well and see what it needs. Okay, so that's what I'll do with this. It's looking very similar to the picture right now, right? But you know what the picture shows in life, I tend to want a painterly painting and not a realistic painting. I'm not a realistic painter. I want something that's, for instance, you can see here all of these brush marks, right? That's what I like. So I'm going to come back to it and add more brush marks that are going to make it look more, first of all, a little more contrast. Like this is too much of the same color right here. So I may end up putting little lines in there, just little faint lines, a little detail. Another thing is I need to add some lightness right underneath here because this is too much the same color as this. These are just like evaluations that I do as I'm looking at it. Um, and, but I like where it's going, but to me, it's not done yet because there are a bunch of things that have to be still addressed, like bringing color all the way down into the bottom here. If I want to, I may not want to. I may want to leave these white so that there's a little more contrast there with the blue. I don't know. Another thing that I like to do is I like to take a mat and put a mat on it like this. Oop, let's move this water for just a moment. Over there. So I like to throw a mat on it and see where it's going. Now I love all this whiteness around the edges here, where you can see where the brush was brushing by, so that you can see that it's not a photograph, it's a painting. I like that. Okay, so that's how it would look. Let me move it over a little bit so it's more in the camera angle. There you go. Um, so that you can see what it looks like more with the mat on it. Yeah, like that. Or this painting may call for a white mat. Let me see, where's my white one? Is it in here? Oopsies. There it is. Okay, I got it. A white one. This one might look better with a white mat. You know, I always say it depends on your decor, which mat is going to look better on it. But there it is with the white mat. And so looking at it with the mats can also help you to make decisions as to what you might want to do with the piece later. Okay. Sometimes the mat can help to bring things out. And let me come back to this one for right now. So I'm going to set this aside. This is, I would say, 85 to 90% done, but it doesn't have those, to me, the finishing touches, the je ne sais quoi. Okay. It needs some more highlighting and some more definition, and then it'll be, I think then it'll be done, but not yet. And that's okay because it's, you don't have to finish everything a la prima, all in one go, right? Now this one, I want to show you how the paper, can you see the paper bending just a little bit there? Which is not a problem when you're done. You can put it under books and then that'll help flatten it out, and it'll work fine. There's a lot more to go on this one as well. Um, I like where it's going, but I'll have to sit with it and determine like what color do I want these little tendrils to be? Do I want them to be orange? Do I want them to be yellow? I don't know. I'll have to sit with it for a little bit and make some decisions. And then I will finish it before next week. So that is it for the workshop with M Graham. Here we go. The M Graham watercolors, or no, gouache. Silly me. So to review the colors again, I was using the Gamboge, which is a warmer version of yellow. Yay, Florida Glass Girl, thank you. And then for the blue, instead of the ultramarine, I use the cobalt blue. They're both beautiful. The ultramarine's a little deeper. And then I used both the Naphthol red and the Quinacridone rose. And of course, the Dioxazine Purple on this one. And then for the white, I was using the titanium white, this one, titanium white, instead of the zinc white. I used the titanium white. So those are the colors that we're using. And in the description of the video on YouTube, I will list the colors that I used. Like I didn't use the ultramarine. And I showed you about the azo yellow, but we didn't actually use it in the painting. We used the gamboge. So these are the colors um, that we used in the other painting. And then we threw in some purple for this one, right? Yay. So that was fun. Thank you so much for joining me for the workshop portion of the show. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.